The narrator invites the viewer to follow into darkness, promising to reveal deep secrets. There's a sense of urgency as the narrator states there's no time to waste and a door is opening. The scene shifts to a dialogue between two characters, with one expressing surprise at the other's criminal mastermind abilities. They discuss finding a way around an obstacle, suggesting they are attempting to enter a restricted area. The protagonist mentions being in someone else's pub, hoping the owner won't mind their presence. This establishes the setting as an unauthorized exploration of a possibly abandoned location. The characters successfully enter the building, describing it as descending into the mouth of hell. One character expresses excitement about the location, calling it incredible. The other reveals that urban exploration is a hobby, explaining the appeal of empty spaces and abandoned buildings. They see potential in these places to create something new simply by entering. This conversation provides insight into the motivations behind their exploration. The explorers discuss their approach to urban exploration. One character emphasizes the importance of not rearranging spaces, wanting to preserve the authenticity of the abandoned environment. They are searching for a focus for their photography series, looking for something lonely to capture. The deteriorating condition of the building is noted, with warnings about potential asbestos. This segment highlights the artistic and preservationist aspects of their urban exploration. The characters examine various features of the abandoned building, including a face-like formation and graffiti. They discuss the building's history, estimating it was built in the 1960s but only closed a decade ago. The rapid decay is attributed to the building's tacky design. One character mentions being on a photography residency, adding context to their exploration. The conversation touches on themes of time, decay, and the artistic interpretation of abandoned spaces. The exploration continues as they encounter more intriguing elements within the building. They discuss the contrast between the current state of the building and how it appears in online photos. The protagonist is still searching for a central focus for their photography project. They reflect on the building's history and speculate about why it wasn't demolished, touching on themes of preservation versus progress. The explorers' conversation provides insight into their artistic process and the value they see in abandoned spaces. A breakthrough occurs as the photographer finds their central piece, a beautiful, forgotten object that embodies loneliness. They work together to find the perfect angle for the shot, showcasing the collaborative nature of their exploration. This segment highlights the artistic vision coming to fruition, as well as the physical challenges and potential dangers of urban exploration. The characters' determination to capture the perfect shot demonstrates their commitment to their craft. The scene abruptly shifts, suggesting a possible time jump or change in perspective. Characters named Chloe and Max are mentioned, with Max appearing disoriented. The setting changes to a bar where drinks are ordered. This sudden transition introduces new characters in a different setting, potentially linking the urban exploration to a broader narrative or suggesting a flashback, flash-forward scenario. The conversation at the bar delves into personal relationships. A character is revealed to have had a high school sweetheart with blue hair who died, adding a layer of personal history and loss to the story. The discussion then shifts to a current romantic interest, with friends offering dating advice. This segment provides character development and introduces themes of past trauma and new beginnings. The focus shifts to a character's attempt to connect with someone they're interested in. They plan to learn about the person's interests by examining the decor of the establishment. This part of the story explores themes of social interaction, romantic pursuits, and personal growth as the character steps out of their comfort zone. The narrative expands to include discussions about college life, including staying on campus during holidays and the dynamics of secret societies. Characters debate the merits and drawbacks of joining such groups, touching on themes of belonging, ambition, and the changing nature of institutions. This segment provides a broader context of the social and academic environment in which the characters operate. The scene returns to the bar, focusing on interactions between the protagonist and Amanda, a bartender. They discuss local music, family, and engage in playful banter about pickup lines. This conversation leads to plans for a date, marking a potential new romantic development. The conversation begins with a discussion about a shattered asteroid observed from 11 million miles away. The speakers debate whether this asteroid poses a threat to Earth, concluding it's not a concern in their lifetime. They then ponder what they would do with 24 hours left before the world ends. One person expresses a desire to document the apocalypse through photography, while another argues that art requires an audience to have meaning. The group seems to be gathering for some kind of event or celebration. The scene shifts to a gathering where the speakers are sharing drinks. They joke about the quality of the cups provided, attributing it to the astronomy department's poor taste. Someone announces they have good news, but can't share details until everything is finalized. The group decides to take a selfie to commemorate the moment, despite the cold weather. There's a sense of camaraderie and lighthearted banter among the friends. The narrative focuses on the mysterious good news and the curiosity it sparks among the group. There's a particular interest in convincing the person with the news to reveal more details. The scene also describes Moses, who appears deeply engrossed in his work, even when performing mundane tasks. The atmosphere is one of playful secrecy and friendly teasing. A game involving a bottle cap is introduced, where the holder must do whatever they're told within reason. This game is presented as a way to potentially uncover the secret good news. The narrator plans to trick Sophie into participating in the game, setting up a playful scheme to plant the bottle cap on her. The interaction hints at underlying romantic tensions and unspoken feelings among the group members. The conversation turns more personal, touching on topics like poetry and the moon. There's a brief mention of Max's background and why he came to the current location, hinting at a past he's reluctant to discuss. The bottle cap game comes into play, and Sophie is compelled to reveal her secret. She's received an offer from a publisher for her poetry collection. This news is met with excitement and congratulations, though Sophie stresses the need for discretion until the deal is finalized. The discussion returns to the hypothetical end-of-the-world scenario, with reflections on the value of documenting such an event through photography. The group admires a comet or asteroid visible in the sky. One member of the group begins to feel unwell, possibly from the champagne, and decides to leave early, opting to walk home alone to clear their head. The narrative takes on a more introspective tone, describing a perfect night for walking home. There are poetic musings about relationships and existence, intertwined with lyrics or verses that speak of dreams and ocean depths. The mood is contemplative and slightly surreal, blending reality with imagination. The scene abruptly shifts to a more urgent tone. There's mention of an emergency system in effect, and the narrator expresses a sense of responsibility or guilt for the situation. The narrative becomes fragmented, with repeated attempts to check on Sophie's well-being. There's a growing sense of confusion and concern. The story takes a dramatic turn, revealing supernatural elements. The narrator, Max, discovers they have the ability to rewind time. This power is described as both incredible and problematic, having caused heartbreak and difficult choices. There's a poignant moment of reconnection with someone named Chloe, who had previously died. The narrative touches on themes of loss, regret, and the complexities of altering the past. The scene shifts to a more mundane setting, with Max realizing their living space is messy. There's a sense of needing to clean up and prepare for a visit from Amanda. The narrative touches on personal mementos and memories, including congratulatory notes and photographs. As Amanda arrives, the story explores themes of grief, friendship, and the process of healing after a significant loss. The conversation with Amanda is supportive and caring, offering a glimpse of hope and normalcy amidst the emotional turmoil. The campus is affected by Sophie's death. The speaker missed a workshop last week, but their last work, though rough, was honest. They are described as a natural, which is a new experience for them. The speaker needs to meet with Yasmin, but has been putting it off. An Abraxas puzzle box is introduced. It contains rewards for those who can open it and is meant to test the eye for detail virtue. The puzzle involves a statue of the founder, which is missing one of its birds. Wax is discovered around the statue, suggesting a hidden clue. The puzzle continues with the use of a lighter to melt the wax, revealing a second test. The original puzzle solver gives up, passing the challenge to the protagonist. Sophie's murder has deeply affected the entire campus. The protagonist is reminded that they still need to meet with Yasmin, and her office is located down the hall. The protagonist encounters Vin, who manages Yasmin's communications. Vin expresses frustration that Yasmin sometimes bypasses him to communicate directly. The conversation touches on Sophie's death and the impact it has had. Vin reveals that he had conflicts with Sophie, often mediating between her and her mother. He suggests that the protagonist's presence might be helpful to Yasmin, who is struggling with Sophie's death. Vin mentions a package he's waiting for down the hall. The scene shifts to a conversation with Max, who is deeply affected by Sophie's death. They share a comforting hug. Max came to pick up a book but found it locked away, presenting a challenge for the protagonist to solve. The protagonist, known for their lock-picking skills, is asked to help retrieve the locked book. They discuss Sophie's unfinished manuscript and the importance of preserving her legacy. The lock-picking process begins with the protagonist searching for the right tool. The protagonist successfully picks the lock, impressing Max. The book turns out to be an old mystery novel, which leads to a discussion about Sophie's unfinished manuscript. Max encourages the protagonist to stay in touch, offering support during this difficult time. The scene transitions to a conversation with Yasmin, who is on the phone with the police chief about Sophie's case. Yasmin expresses frustration with the police's handling of the investigation and their consideration of suicide as a possible cause of death. Yasmin questions the protagonist about Sophie's state of mind, seeking reassurance that suicide was unlikely. The protagonist affirms that Sophie was hopeful about the future. Yasmin asks for help in selecting a photo of Sophie for memorial materials. The protagonist reflects on Sophie's multifaceted personality while choosing a photo. They then prepare to meet Moses at the Fab Cafe. An unexpected interaction occurs where someone delivers a package to the protagonist, establishing a favor to be called in later. The protagonist then heads to meet Moses at the Fab Cafe. The protagonist overhears a mysterious phone conversation, possibly related to the investigation. They are then confronted by Loretta, who is working on a podcast and seeking information about Sophie. The conversation with Loretta becomes tense as she implies potential misconduct involving Sophie and her mother. The protagonist refuses to participate in spreading rumors, leading to a confrontation with a professor who overhears the exchange. The scene shifts to a heartfelt conversation, likely with Moses, about coping with Sophie's death. They discuss feelings of guilt and the importance of supporting each other through this difficult time. Lucas Camero, head of the literature department, is holding a memorial class for Sophie on the quad. His approach is perceived as pretentious and self-serving, causing discomfort for the protagonist, who knew Sophie disliked him. The protagonist considers intervening in Lucas's speech, but ultimately decides against it, opting instead to rejoin Moses. The next scene involves a conversation about how the protagonist and Sophie first met. It was during a campus tour when Sophie noticed a cherry blossom bracelet the protagonist was wearing, which coincided with a poem Sophie had just written. This connection marked the beginning of their friendship. The scene opens with a discussion about the meaning of hanami in Japanese, which translates to watching blossoms. The conversation shifts to reminiscing about a particular bench that holds significance for the characters. It was their lunch spot during a time when they were both teaching summer school. The speaker reflects on their companion's ability to appreciate comfortable silence despite being talkative. There's a poignant moment where the characters decide to use present tense when referring to Safi, indicating a reluctance to accept a loss. The scene concludes with one character expressing a need for alone time, while the other mentions heading to the observatory. The narrative transitions to a discussion about strategy in a card game. The speaker advises against an aggressive approach with a specific card, emphasizing that any color deck can win with the right cards. This segment highlights the complexity of the game and the importance of tactical thinking over simple color-based strategies. The scene then abruptly shifts, introducing confusion and a sense of disorientation. The narrator questions the sudden change in Moses' behavior and expresses a desire to bring back the familiar version of him. There's an encounter with an unknown entity or group where the narrator declares themselves as a conscientious objector and expresses a desire for hot cocoa. The scene continues with a surreal atmosphere as the narrator tries to make sense of their surroundings. They decide to follow another version of Moses, determined to understand the strange occurrences. The repetition of "got to keep following Moses" emphasizes the narrator's confusion and their belief that Moses holds the key to unraveling the mystery. This segment builds tension and intrigue, leaving the audience curious about the nature of these events and the significance of the multiple versions of Moses. The narrative shifts to a more coherent scene where someone is reminded of an imminent final exam. There's a playful exchange about teaching responsibilities and a mention of a high rating on tact trade. The scene then transitions to a character expressing disbelief at being stood up for lunch by Max. A realization dawns that the events unfolding are real, not imaginary. The narrative becomes more urgent as the character decides they need to reach Sophie. There's a humorous threat to reveal something to Moses about Max not watching Blu-rays, adding a light-hearted note to the tense atmosphere. The scene intensifies as the narrator desperately tries to communicate with Sophie, who seems unable to hear or see them. This creates a sense of frustration and helplessness. The narrative then abruptly shifts to a more mundane scenario involving pizza rolls in an office, possibly indicating a jump in time or perspective. There's a brief mention of regret or second-guessing a previous decision, with the phrase "one was enough" and "we should have stayed there." The scene concludes with a character expressing relief at finding someone, fearing they might have frozen to death otherwise.